Are you a business owner or entrepreneur who's had great success in the business world, and now you want to launch a speaking career to share your message with the world? If that's you, then listen up. 25-year speaking industry veteran Brett Ridgway has released his latest special report, 3 key things entrepreneurs must master to build a profitable speaking business. To pick up your copy, go to brettridgway.com/freebie. Welcome to the Spotlight on Speaking show with Brett Ridgway, where you'll learn the keys to building a profitable speaking business from speaking industry pros. Each week, we interview a great guest who will share his or her speaking journey, identify what their keys to success have been, and highlight some critical mistakes they've made along the way that you'll want to avoid. Be sure to visit our website at spotlightonspeaking.com. And while you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, sit back, tune in, and get ready to meet this week's guest.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Spotlight on Speaking show. And I'm excited to have as my guest today, Dr. Noah St. John. Noah is known worldwide as the father of Afformations and creator of the 12-week breakthrough. Working with Hollywood celebrities, professional athletes, and 8-figure company CEOs, Noah is famous for helping people make more in just 12 weeks than they made in the last 12 months while winning their lives back. He's also the author of 25 books, including his new book, The 7-Figure Expert, Your Ultimate Guide to a Life of More Impact, Influence, and Financial Freedom. And we'll talk a little bit later on about how you can get a free copy of that book. So Noah, welcome to the Spotlight on Speaking show.
Thanks, Brett. It's great to be here with you.
Now, Noah and I go way back, but it's been quite a while since we chatted. We were both on the seminar circuit, so to speak, back in the early mid-2000s, even into the early teens or whatever. But we probably haven't actually crossed paths in more than 10 years, I would guess, Noah.
Yep, that's right.
So, as I said, we crossed on the seminar circuit. So, you mainly position yourself as a coach, obviously. Now, I got to say, I feel like a bit of an underachiever. I've only written 9 books. I don't know how you cranked out 25, but anyway, that's another story for another day.
And that was without AI, let me say.
That was
without AI.
That was without, well, it's amazing. It's amazing what you can do with AI these days. I mentioned to you when we were chatting before we started recording that I'm writing children's books now. And they would never have happened if it weren't for AI. Now they're not writing any of the text, but they can generate the illustrations that I need.
Yes.
Painlessly and quickly. And if I had to pay an illustrator to do it, it would never would have happened. So
totally agree. I'm doing the same thing. My wife and I are releasing our children's book later this year, so I totally got it.
Oh, awesome. So I'll promote your children's book if you promote mine.
Fair enough. Fair deal.
Okay, so going back to that, as I said, we were both on the seminar circuit. I was the guy handling the backroom sales table, and Noah was one of the guys up on the stage at the time. And when did you first realize or get into your mind, Noah, that, hey, I need to be the one up on the stage? I'm sure you were in the audience a while yourself and watching other people and thinking, man, I should be the one up there doing that. But take us back. When did you first realize it's like, I need to do that? And why did you want to do that?
Well, actually, that never happened to me. I was 3 years old when I realized I wanted to be on stage.
Wow.
So what happened was I grew up in a little town called Kennebunkport, Maine, which just happens to be one of the wealthiest communities in all of New England. In fact, really in the entire country. It's like the top 1% of 1%. It's like where, the Bushes, George Bush, George H.W. Bush. So there's, 2 former presidents that are from there. So very, very wealthy community. The problem is my family was dirt poor. And I mean that literally, because I grew up at the bottom of a dirt road in a drafty, unfinished house that my parents actually ended up losing to foreclosure when I was just 15 years old. But the reason we moved to Kennebunkport when I was very small was that my father was the manager of a summer theater company in Kennebunkport. Now, Kennebunkport is, big tourist town, and it basically opens on Memorial Day and shuts down after Labor Day, like a lot of tourist places.
Yeah.
So there was a summer theater, and my father managed it. Well, what it just so happened, I really was raised in a very theatrical household. My mom and dad, they met at Catholic University, as actors. And so we always had like Broadway shows playing, on the radio or on the record player when I was growing up. So very, very theatrical family. Well, my brother and I would go on stage during the breaks at the summer theater. I was about 3 years old. He was about five. He's 18 months older than me. And we would do Ernie and Bert routines from Sesame Street on stage. I was Ernie, he was Bert. Anyway, so that is where I realized that being on stage means I get attention and love. That's what we all want, right? I mean, that's what every human being wants is attention and love. So from age 3 years old, it was implanted into my brain. Being on stage means getting exactly what I want, attention and love and smiles and laughter. We would just entertain the people there. So I always, always, always wanted to be on stage and in front of the camera. When I was 18 years old, I actually became a professional ballet dancer, which was another way to be on stage. But as a ballet dancer, you don't speak, right? It's silent. You're not talking. Well, I got injured at age 22, and so it was a career-ending injury. So I had a very short career as a professional ballet dancer. And so at that time, at 22, I decided to move out to Los Angeles to become a movie star because I realized, hey man, I can't dance, but it doesn't take any talent to be an actor. Look at all these clowns that are actors. I'm just as good as they are. I'm better than most of them. So what the heck? Let's do it. So I just drove across the country from Maine to California, went to Los Angeles, and as it turned out, Hollywood was underwhelmed by my performance. So I couldn't get a job to save my life. And, this was back in the, late 80s, early 90s when everything was very white bread. It was all just very vanilla white bread. There was no, ethnics, shall we say. So I have a very ethnic look. I couldn't get a job to save my life. If I would gone there now, I'd probably get a lot of work because I have an ethnic type of look, right? That's what Hollywood wants nowadays. I guess I was just 20 years ahead of my time. What can I say? Anyway,
always ahead of your time.
Exactly. So then I decided to move back to New England. I went back to college. And in 1997, I wrote my first book, which was entitled Permission to Succeed. And it was subsequently published by the Chicken Soup for the Soul publisher. And so I realized that in order to promote my book, I got to speak. I have to do speaking events. So I just started booking bookstores. I would just call bookstores, just cold call them and say, hey, I got a book. You want me to come to your bookstore and do a book signing? And most of them would say, yes, sure. Why not? You're a local author and sure, I just get in my car, drive and, I would do a reading from my book and, there'd be 10 people there, 20 people. I mean, it wasn't big crowds by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a way to just get back on stage. And then I also at that time decided to join Toastmasters because I realized that, I really needed to hone my speaking skills. And this is whenever anybody asks me, what's the most important thing you can do if I'm just starting my speaking career? I always say join Toastmasters. And for those of you not familiar with it, you just go to toastmasters.org. And if you're anywhere in the world, you're probably within 50 miles or less of a Toastmasters meeting group. And there's no question it's the best place in the world, best organization to really, really hone and polish your speaking skills. In fact, I became president of my local Toastmasters organization because I really wanted to, serve and give back. And that was a great, great experience for me to really hone my skills. Even though I'd been on stage since I was 3, I hadn't really done that type of speaking before. It was either on stage as a ballet dancer where you don't speak or, as an actor where they give you lines. But I'm like, well, wait a minute, this is me. I've got to talk about me and, my experience, my feelings and, teach and help people and add value. So I didn't know how to do that. So that was really what got me started. And that's really how this whole journey began.
So when did the book Permission to Succeed become something beyond that, a coaching program associated with it?
When I released Permission to Succeed, I first released it as a self-published book in 1998. Now, this was long before all the tools that we have today, like Kindle, KDP and all the things. I mean, you can write and publish a book in a day, and have it online available to the entire planet. Well, of course, back then there was none of that. So I I wrote this book. I didn't know what to do with it. So I literally went down to my local copy shop. This was when you had copy shops on, different, not that they're pretty much gone now, like bookstores. But anyway, I went in and I said, "Hey, I've got this book. How do I publish it?" And they said, "Well, you can, print it and do this and that." I said, "Well, I don't have any money. What's the cheapest way to do it?" And they said, "Well, you can do it with tape bound. It's called tape bound." I go, "Well, what's tape bound?" I go, "Well, it's bound with a piece of tape. Tape bound." I go, "Okay, that sounds good." So I printed the ugliest book you've ever seen. It was literally like it just came off the printer because that's exactly what it was. It was 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper, and it's the ugliest thing you ever saw. So I started just going around to bookstores and selling that book. And then, like I mentioned, the Chicken Soup publisher decided to publish that. So then it became, an officially published book, which was so exciting. And those of you listening and watching who have had your books published, you know how exciting that first book is. There's nothing like it. And of course, if you haven't done it yet, you really should do it. And of course, now I help people get their books published. Like, for example, we have one client, because we have a done for you book service. I had one client who's a medical doctor in Nashville, and he told me that he'd been thinking about writing his book for 10 years. We got it done for him in 6 weeks. So now we've really streamlined the process. It's really awesome. You can go to my website and learn about all that stuff. But anyway, so I realized very quickly that, okay, I've got a $20 book. I'm going to have to sell a heck of a lot of books in order to make a living here. So this isn't going to work. What do I do? And there was really nobody to help me back then. So I realized, well, I've got to have some kind of coaching where I can charge more and give more value. You give more value, more access to me, then of course you can charge people because a book is $20, but coaching can be thousands of dollars, right? And so that's what I decided to do. And at this time it was just me. So I learned HTML. I taught myself HTML, put up my own website. This was back in the day when you could really do those types of things. And, people would start, they just found me. They type in fear of success on Google, I'd come up number one. And, people would contact me. Like, for example, I had one woman who was in network marketing, and she told me she did that. She typed in fear of success on Google, and I came up number one. She contacted me, I coached her, and she went on to have the best years of her career as a result of coaching with me. That was many years ago. But, that really got me into the network marketing industry. So a lot of people in network marketing use my formulas and my methods, and I've coached many people. In fact, I've helped my coaching clients make over $3 billion collectively and hundreds of millions in network marketing and real estate and places like that. So really, that's how it began, because I realized if you want to make money here, you're going to have to sell a lot of $20 books. So it's a lot smarter to have different levels of offers and services.
So who put you up on their stage first?
It was actually network marketing companies. That
Okay.
really was my first ones. So like I would fly in and I would go to different, there were the top people there, the leaders, and they would just have me on their stages. So, I mean, that was a long time ago. That was like, gosh, 1999, 2000,
Yeah.
long time ago.
Now,
And
were
then
you able to sell, Noah? Were you
yeah,
able to sell from the platform
yes, I
right
did.
away, or were
So
these keynote speeches only?
nope, it was pretty much all speak to sell. So I would,
Yeah.
speak for about 30 minutes. And then at that time, I had my books and my audios in the back. And then, of course, people would hire me to coach them because they're like, man, this is incredible. And people would say to me, I realize this is exactly what I've been looking for, and I have helped a lot of people, especially people who've tried everything else. They've gone to Tony Robbins seminars, they've gone all these different seminars and gurus, and they're doing okay, but they're still hitting that income ceiling. And then after coaching with me, they get that hockey stick growth, a lot of times doubling and tripling and 800% and 1500% increases. We call that hockey stick. We'd like, whoop, just going through the roof. So, Yeah, so really I've done more speak to sell than actual keynotes. And so, I'm very comfortable with that, which is interesting because a lot of speakers really are uncomfortable with speak to sell. And there's
Mhm.
a real framework that you have to follow that it took me years to learn that. There was no training back then of how to do it most of the time. I just I would do the classic mistake, which is I would overteach. I would overgive because I love helping people and I really wanted to help people. And so I would overteach and then the people, the audience members they would tend to be overwhelmed because I would give them so much and they'd be like, well, okay, what am I, this is great, but I don't know what to do now. I'm like, I thought I just told you. And they're like, yeah, but I don't get it, so it took me a long time to figure it out.
All right, so let's talk about speak to sell a little bit, Noah. So, what you went through it, and it's basically through the school of hard knocks to learn how to do it more efficiently and effectively. So,
Yep.
if you were going to advise somebody today, what would your three biggest tips be to be successful as a stage seller?
The first step you want to realize is what is the benefit outcome that your product, your service gives to your buyer? What is the outcome? All right. So everybody buys things because of what it will give to them, what it will do for them, especially when it comes to personal development, business development. I'm buying this, I'm trading money. So you give me something in return that is, and I always like to give 10 times the value of what somebody gives me. I'll give you a great example of that. I was working with one of my coaching clients, and he said to me that after he'd been reading my books and watching my videos on YouTube, he realized that if he didn't get rid of his head trash, which is one of the things that I teach, how to take out your head trash, that it was easily going to cost him $1 million a year. It's costing him $1 million a year to have this head trash that's holding him back. And so I said, well, why don't you just give me 10% of that and I'll find you $1 million in the next 12 months. And because if you give me $1 and I give you $10 back, isn't that a good deal? And he goes, yeah, that's a great deal. And so he did that. So he invested 100K with me for one-on-one coaching for a year. Now, as it turns out, I didn't find him $1 million in the next 12 months. Instead, I found him 1.8 million in just 10 months. So he gave me $1 and I gave him $18 back. Is that a good deal? No, that's a great deal. And he actually was able to take a 7-week vacation with his wife, which he'd been dreaming about for years, but he never had the time or the money before coaching with me. So that's an example of giving 10x value. You see what I mean? So as the speaker, as the presenter, you want to always be focused on when somebody invests with me, how can I give them 10x in return? Okay. So there's really only three things that people buy or want in this arena, and that is health, wealth, and relationships. All right. So everybody wants to be healthier, everybody wants to be wealthier, and everybody wants to have happier relationships. So if you fall into one or more of those categories, you need to exactly describe what is the benefit of investing with you, number one. Number two, then the second part, so that's really kind of like the overview or
Mhm.
the introduction. Here's what I do, and here is what this means for you. The second part would be you give a basic framework. Like for example, you mentioned that I have one of my books is called The Seven-Figure Expert, right? So in this book and in all of my books, I give a framework, right? And it looks like this, right? So this is the Seven-Figure Expert framework. It's 5 steps, 5 stages. And so you want to have a framework that you have proven with other customers, clients. Like I was just talking about, with my client I just talked about. His name's Charles. And so I said, here's Charles's story. Here's how I helped him. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And then, of course, the third step is the call to action. If you would like to make 10 times more without having to work harder, in fact, while winning your life back, while working less, while gaining 1 to 3 hours a day and 4 to 8 weeks per year, then you want to join right now. So, like in this case, we would say go to sevenfigureexpertbook.com and get the book for free. So there you go, sevenfigureexpertbook.com. So do you see, in about 60 seconds, I literally just gave the whole talk. Now, you want to expand it, if you have 30 minutes or 60 minutes or whatever you have, you want to fill it in, but there you go. In 60 seconds, that's the basic framework.
So obviously in the platform selling world, Noah, success is typically measured in dollars and cents. I mean, how much did you generate in the back of the room?
That's
What
right.
other ways do you use to analyze or measure whether you think a particular speech has been successful besides the actual dollars?
Well, I always get invited back. I mean, meeting planners love me for a couple of reasons. One is, yeah, I make everybody a lot of money, right? So I close really, really well on stage. So that is absolutely the first thing that meeting planner is looking for, because every spot, costs money. In other words, if speaker A brings in 100K, speaker B brings in 20K, speaker C brings in 200K, speaker B is not looking too good right now, so that's not great. So that, you really do have to bring in the numbers. That's really, really critical. Otherwise, you're probably not going to get invited back for,
Hmm.
just dollars and cents. But what's also important is that you are not a diva, that you are low maintenance, as I like to say. And I have spoken with so many meeting planners, and they just love me because I am freaking low maintenance on purpose. All right. And they say, well, what do you need? And I go, water. Can I just have some water? And that's kind of it. You know what I mean? It's like, as long as I got water, I'm good.
Yeah, we've all heard stories about the guy who insisted that he had to have only green M&Ms on the stage for
That's
his
right.
talk, or the
That's right.
lady that had to have a particular type of fancy bottled water chilled to
Exactly.
exactly a particular temperature. It's like, give me
Exactly.
a freaking break. I mean, come on.
Yeah. I mean, I get it that, the headline, the big name speakers, the presidents, ex-presidents, the athletes, they are going to bring in the audience because they're headliners, they're celebrities. So celebrities, they get to be, let's just say, high maintenance because they know, hey, if you don't have me, you're not going to have the audience you want. So they get to kind of be a jerk. But for most of us speakers, you're not that. They might be coming to see that athlete or ex-president, but are they really coming to see you? I don't know. I'm not saying they're not, but I would rather err on the side of low maintenance for that precise reason, to get invited back. And I
Mhm.
always get invited back. So those are really the two things that meeting planners care about. Because let's face it, let's say you bring in the money, but you're a total jerk about it. They might bring you back, but they're not going to enjoy it. And believe me, this is such a small universe. The speaking universe is very small. Everybody talks, everybody gossips. And did you see what she did? And did you know what he did? And oh my gosh. And so that's the other thing. I have a sterling reputation for that precise reason. So
Yeah,
you want that gossip to be in your favor, right? So
right.
just be low maintenance and say, do I really have to have this and that and the other in order to do a good talk? And probably you just don't. I mean, water, you're probably good.
Yeah. I got a couple other questions I want to ask you, Noah, but before we do, let's take a quick break for a word from our sponsor.
Are you a business owner or entrepreneur who's had great success in the business world, and now you want to launch a speaking career to share your message with the world? If that's you, then listen up. 25-year speaking industry veteran Brett Ridgway has released his latest special report, 3 Key Things Entrepreneurs Must Master to Build a Profitable Speaking Business. To pick up your copy, go to brettridgway.com/freebie.
All right, and we are back with my guest, Noah St. John. And Noah, one of my favorite questions to ask my guest always is, all right, it's time to bare your soul a little bit here and share an embarrassing moment from your career that maybe left you a bit red-faced at the time, but a valuable lesson was learned and would be something that you would highly advise up-and-comers not to do.
It's really what I already mentioned, which is when I would overteach. I always want to give so much. I'm such an overgiver, and it's great, it's nice, but it doesn't serve the purpose of why I was there. So, I mean, in 30 minutes, I would basically read my whole book to them. It's like, and they would just be like, what? It'd be like a fire hose. So it really took me a long time to realize, oh my gosh, that is way too much information. So I've learned to pare it back, pare it back, pare it back, and now really giving really just the points I already talked about. But that was my big mistake. And I really did. I made that for a long time. And I would always be scratching my head going, I thought that was really good. And people came up to me and they loved it. And then I would say, oh, great. Did you want to sign up? And they go, oh, no, you already fixed me. What? So it was, and then meanwhile, there's other speakers on stage. They hardly said anything and they made all this money. I'm going, what? So that was so aggravating. And I just kept sitting there going, but they didn't say anything. And everybody, run the back. I'm going, what is going on around here? And
So
so anyway, that's when I really had to go back and, kind of like a scientist in his lab. And I went, well, oh, I get it. Okay, I see. And after a while, I pieced it together, and now we have it very streamlined and very much dialed in.
how do you really determine, Noah, when enough is enough and you've crossed that line, the optimal line in terms of amount of content?
You don't know. You just have to do it. There's no way to know ahead of time. You can't. So that is the old, you know, trial and error.
Mhm.
You have to, I essentially gave the basic framework. So as long as you're following the basic framework, you should be fine. Because I did not follow the framework that I just gave you. I just didn't. I would just teach everything. Here you go, blah. And they're like, this is great. And why didn't you buy it? Oh, you just told me everything. What? So, you can't know ahead of time. You just can't. It's really, do you get the table rush at the back of the room? That's,
Yeah.
that's your thermometer right there.
What do you do differently, if anything, Noah, for online presentations versus in person on the stage presentations?
There's no difference at all. It's of course much, much, much harder to keep people's attention online, right? Because
Mhm.
when you're in a physical room, generally speaking, people don't just get up and walk away, you know, during the middle of your talk. Most people are polite and they're going to sit there, even if you suck, and they'll be like, I can't wait for this guy to be done. But they're not going to just leave, generally speaking. But online, they're like, click, you're done. You know what I'm saying? So there's no like peer pressure to stay in the room if you suck. So it's much, much, much harder to keep people's attention online. So that's, one of the things that I work on very hard is frankly being entertaining, just being funny and being engaging. It's not that I'm going around telling jokes and stuff because I'm not a joke teller, but I'm just an entertaining guy. And I've worked on that very hard. I mean, like I said, I've been on stage since age 3. So, I basically do this by breathing, but for people, most people don't have that experience. So, yeah, that's definitely a skill you have to learn and master, which is to keep people engaged if you're online. So that's really the main difference is it's just 10 times harder to keep people engaged online, but it's essentially the same content.
Right now, I want to give you a couple of minutes to tell people a little bit more about what all it is that you do and how they can get involved in your world if they so choose. And then mention again that your book that they can pick up for free if you would.
Sure, absolutely. So just go to my website. My main website is noahstjohn.com. That's my name, noahstjohn.com. And we got tons of resources. We have a custom GPT that I created that will show you the gaps between where you are and where you want to be. We also have something called the Noah Bot, which is my son and I took my 25 books and basically downloaded my brain into a bot. And so you can have me 24/7 helping you without the six-figure price tag. So it's pretty awesome. Now, if you do want to talk to me about coaching and helping you, just go to breakthroughwithnoah.com. It's easy to remember, breakthroughwithnoah.com. And we can give you a 15-minute business evaluation, and we'll help you get from where you are to where you want to be much, much faster. And again, here's the book, sevenfigureexpertbook.com. There you go. It's the Seven Figure Expert. So sevenfigureexpertbook.com. thebook.com. Easy to remember. The book is free. I've covered the cost of the book. We just ask you to cover the shipping. So sevenfigureexpertbook.com.
All right, well, we're very good. So, Noah, as we wind this down, any final words of wisdom for the aspiring speaker?
Don't quit. Just don't quit. The only way you lose is if you quit. I've had a lot of things, not go my way. I've had things go my way, but overall, I've failed 80% of the time. 80% of the things that I've tried have failed. I'm still doing pretty good here, so don't quit, but do get help, get that mentor, that coach that can help you, but make sure they have helped other people. When you go to my website, you'll see over 250 success stories of my customers and clients. So make sure that you do your homework, do your research, and hire and work with somebody who has a track record of helping people get from where they were to where you want to be.
All right. Well, such great advice. So, Noah, I want to thank you so much for being my guest today on this episode of the Spotlight on Speaking show. To all the listeners out there, thank you so much for joining us. As always, I wish you the greatest of success, and may this year be your greatest year yet. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye. And that is a wrap.
Okay.
This has been the Spotlight on Speaking show with Brett Ridgway. Be sure to join us every week as we interview speaking industry pros and have them share their best tips for building a profitable speaking business. Until next week, thank you for tuning in, and remember to visit our website at spotlightonspeaking.com so you can enjoy even more great episodes like this one. While you're here, be sure to subscribe via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Spotlight on Speaking show. Until then, our sincere best wishes to you for the greatest of success as you work to build your own profitable speaking business.